My son has always been keto. He's never really been into sweets. And when he saw the results that I was getting within the first 6 months of my carnivore journey, he went full blown carnivore and he hasn't looked back.
Gig, how did you find the carnivore diet?
Dave, I'm so glad that you asked. It it really started with one particular YouTube video. And before I share that with you, I will tell you that I became very, very metabolically sick and unhealthy. And this goes back to about 3 years ago. And I was soul searching in regards to why is this happening to me, in regards to my fitness level and my health, because I've always been extremely athletic. I've always been very active. I've never had a weight problem. And I know that a lot of viewers get into carnivore because of weight opportunities. We'll call them opportunities. And with that said, my situation had nothing to do with weight. It was all metabolic health and the laundry list of items that I have in regards to a huge list that I've made for for you, so I can effectively and efficiently go through some of the things that I'd like to share with you. But to answer your question, the very first video was Joe Rogan's interview with Michaela Peterson. And that struck a chord with me because here is someone that since childbirth, her early years, she's had some very serious health issues, metabolic issues, clinical, psychiatric challenges, and come to find out that the numerous food allergies, I'm not sure if that's the correct term, for what she has gone through in her life, along with all the other challenges and opportunities. I kind of related to that. And I felt at that point that if this is something that I'm going to try, I tend to have a compulsive, obsessive personality, and it's either all or nothing. And my family would share that with you. They would say, Gig, can't you just do something in moderation for once? Why do you have to always go to the extreme? And in this case, I think it worked for me because I went in, I didn't put my big toe in the water first. I just dove in. In regards to Michaela Peterson, that was the catalyst that really got me fired in regards to what I needed to do. And that led on to, I'm going to try this. And some of the information that the YouTube video linked out to were some of the people that I really respect and honor, and try to follow all the things that I've learned over the past 13 months that I've been full-blown carnivore. I'll just mention a couple of other people that I highly respect and that I follow. You're one of them. Carrie at Homestead How, who you have a awesome relationship with, carnivore roundtables, as well as intentional carnivore. But the professional side of all of this is I started to research, and I found Dr. Sean Baker. I found Dr. Ken Berry. I'm sure that you've heard this from other people that you've interviewed. Dr. Anthony Chafee, Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Philip Ovidia, Dr. Elizabeth Bright, Dr. Lisa Weidman, and Dr. Robert Kiltz, and finally, someone who I can relate to because this particular doctor and I have a lot in common in regards to our past athletic careers, and that would be Dr. Sean O'Mara. And so I've been following these doctors, and regardless, whenever I jump into something, even though I do it without moderation, I do it with a tremendous amount of research. I just don't jump on the bandwagon. So I spent countless hours researching these professionals, and the common denominator is if you eliminate enough things in your diet, things that are inflammatory, and you identify what our ancestors were doing, anthropologically speaking and ancestrally speaking, that seems the most logical route to me. And a good example of that, quite a few of these doctors use analogies such as humans were put on this earth to eat a specific diet, just like any species. A good example would be a koala bear eats eucalyptus leaves and only eucalyptus leaves. So when I started to do this research and found out, well, I'm going to have to do, if this is working, I'm going to give it 90 days. If this works, then I can easily do this for the rest of my life. I remember as a teenager eating the same lunch every day for years, which was a tuna fish sandwich, and never getting bored. So I know that I can, do something on the lion diet and carnivore diet realm. And if it works, do it for the rest of my life. Now, I didn't go into this with my eyes wide shut. I really went into it with the fact that could this resolve many of my issues, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment. And when I found out that I was starting to get a positive response within 2 weeks, I knew that I was on a path for the rest of my life that would alter my life in regards to my health. And I've heard so many people that would say, Gig, how can you do that? You need to live. You need to, the spice of life. You need to eat a variety of things that you enjoy. You're only going to be on this earth once, so make the best of it. Well, my response to that is, well, that's fine. I understand that analogy, but if I'm eating all of these things that are making me metabolically sick and possibly shortening my mortality, why not change that to where I'm going to be here a long time for my kids, my grandkids, which really comes first at this point in my life. I am 69 years old, going on 70 in about 6 months. And so I've pretty much lived a clean life, and I think this has worked for me. I've never smoked, I've never drank, and I've never drugged. Being a elite athlete, out of fear that your body is your temple, and I wouldn't want to do anything. However, since the age that, going back as far as I can remember, age 8, I didn't realize it until 3 years ago when I finally realized I do have an addiction. And at the time that I realized that I was a carbaholic and lived my life primarily on carbs, that was something that I just kind of looked at it as, okay, well, yeah, I'm addicted to anything that's sweet, anything that's chocolate or caramel or coffee ice cream and fudge brownies and cookies, along with vegetables, legumes, seed oils, carbohydrates. And I'm not talking just regular addiction. I'm talking, again, compulsive obsessive. And Dave, I'll share one quick thing with you that took place on my last day of the standard American diet. I went out and I bought 5 quarts of ice cream, different manufacturers of ice cream. I'm not going to mention the manufacturers, all different. Oh, one of them was gelato. And I ate all 5 in one sitting because I knew that this was my passage to my new life and that this is the last time I'm going to do that. And after I finished the last quart, within 30 minutes, I got this intense headache in the back of my head. And I found out later that was a sugar or a glucose rebound headache. That headache lasted for almost 30 hours. And it subsided, and that was it. And from that point on, I went full bore, at that time, full bore carnivore. And since then, I kind of rotate between lion diet and carnivore. And currently, the only thing that I eat is ruminant beef. Uh, I eat, in the form of ribeyes, um, Wagyu ground beef. I have a wonderful subscription to a farm out in the Northwest, um, and they are fantastic. And they are a Wagyu 2. Obviously, where you live is the only place where you can get true Japanese Wagyu, but anything is, better um, than what I would be getting at a meat market or a local store, and the price is right. So and then I will do a lot of tallow, a lot of uh, pork fat, a lot of butter, and I eat eggs. When I'm doing lion diet, it's just beef, water, and I salt my beef. When I am doing carnivore, uh, I'll do fish, fatty fish, eggs, butter, beef, bacon, BBB&E, and I kind of rotate the two. But since this is my 13th month that I've been full-blown carnivore, and I haven't veered one bit. When I first started, it was we ended up with a family get together for Thanksgiving, and my knowledge wasn't that great. And they had 7 different pies, everything from key lime pie to pumpkin pie to chocolate pie, banana cream pie, key lime, all these pies. And they had turkey and they had ham. And I didn't know better that, okay, well, there's not too much dark meat, but even dark meat turkey is not fat enough. You don't get enough fat in regards to being able to produce ketones and get into ketosis. And so I learned my lesson. And now when I go to restaurants or what have you, I always make sure ahead that they have real butter, just in case that I'm ordering something that may not meet my needs as far as my fat requirement. And yeah, so it's been interesting. But yeah, sometimes I'll do a month of lion diet, and then I'll switch back to strict carnivore. And every now and then, when I say fatty fish, we're talking about salmon, snapper, and sardines. But I don't stay a lot on it because I just don't get enough fat, and I require a tremendous amount of fat. So one of the side effects in regards to carnivore was weight. I've only once in my life did I have a weight issue, and I believe I sent you a couple of pictures, but that was quite a few years ago when I started a new job, and the stress was incredible, and I just completely stopped exercising at that time, and I ate like crazy, and I was still eating the standard American diet, and I went from 168 to 198, and but to make a long story short, my normal weight is around 155, 160, and I had no idea that on a carnivore diet, when you become fat adapted, your true fat adaptation does amazing things hormonally in your body. And we're talking the mother hormone, insulin, uh, to the hypothalamus, to the pituitary gland, and then your sex hormones, your progesterone, your estrogen, your testosterone. And I forgot the name of the hunger hormone, but all of that fixed itself. And so, and if it wasn't for a high fat intake, that would have never happened. But a side effect was I went from around 168 all the way down to 143, 142. And so I am stable, and I tend to modulate around 145, 144, which is fine for me. But your body just naturally knows when you're hungry and when you're satiated and when you need to eat again. And so I don't count calories. I don't do macros. I simply try to do the most primal thing I can do, and that is to mimic our ancestors, our hunters. And what I've learned is for days, they would be intermittently fasting because they're out hunting and they may not have caught anything. And by the time they catch something, they have to run and sprint to chase it. And you've got people that are very old and up in years that are sprinting. And this is one of the things that Dr. Sean O'Mara has taught me in regards to subcutaneous fat and visceral fat is at my age, it's more important that I work that fast twitch muscle fiber and that I don't have to worry about doing any cardio or long distance like I used to. It's all about, lifting heavy things for a short period of time, overloading the muscles safely. And same thing, when I'm on the bike, I was an avid cyclist. I've cut back tremendously just due to quite a few things in my life, my grandkids, my job, and I've moved recently, so I don't have the nice trails, but I do train indoors. But a lot of that, I've changed it up in the way that I train now. And I still do my CrossFit exercises as well. But I would like to share some of the things that I was experiencing before I went carnivore that caused me to stumble over Michaela Peterson. So, before I do, I'm not sure if I mentioned another doctor that I've researched, Dr. Nader Ali, who is a interventional cardiologist and lipidologist. And one of the things that really fascinated me, because I really got worried because of my cholesterol. Now, let me back up just for a moment. My dad was an avid athlete in incredible shape and a CEO of a major multi-million-dollar corporation. And he passed, had a massive coronary during a tennis match in New Hampshire, I believe it was, when he was 54 years old. And at the time, we were just discovering, in regards to the standard American diet, this thing where a very famous doctor, Dr. Anel Keys, a physiologist who studied the influence of diet and health. I look at him as the father of misinformation, based on the fact that he's the one that has set the stage going back to the early 60s and then moving forward, that we need to be eating much less fat, no fat if possible, a high carb diet. And since then, that's when you started to see cancer rates go up. Coronary artery disease started to go up. Diabetes started to go up. And I could go on and on and on. So when at 6 months, I got my first blood test, and I found out through my own research that I'm in a very unique group of individuals called lean mass hyperresponders. And I'm trying to remember the name of the doctor. Oh, yeah. This was co-discovered by David Friedman. I don't remember his colleague's name. But basically, my cholesterol lipid was off the charts, and supposedly my dad died of a coronary blockage due to high cholesterol. So back then I was programmed, and I fell into the same situation. at one time, in my early 20s, my doctor put me on a statin. And I learned my lesson many years after that, and I got off of it right away because of the family history. On the other side, my mom, who is she's incredible. She is a enigma. She's 97, going on 60, and she is starting to lose sight in one eye, but she is a whippersnapper and she gets around like crazy. Very quick-witted, very sharp. But getting back to this lean mass hyperresponder, my cholesterol levels, my HDL was great. It was in the 80s. My LDL was around 400. My total cholesterol, which I know now means nothing, was around 300. And my triglycerides were low. I think they were 85 or 90. So that put me in that group. And having lean mass naturally, either from genetics or from all my sports and activities, I still have a little bit of a six pack, and I'm still pretty cut, and I'm in wonderful shape. So I know that I'm guessing that my visceral fat, subcutaneous fat, has reduced significantly around all the organs, especially when you go into ketosis and you're that active. But let's talk about all of the symptoms that I was experiencing that put me into the carnivore world. The first one is hypoglycemia. When I was 8 years old, I remember as a family, we always ate as a family dinner. And then after dinner, I'd go out and play. And as I grew up, that turned into street softball, street football, frisbee, ultimate frisbee, and then gymnastics. And I noticed that right after dinner, and by the way, I mentioned that I was a carbaholic. When I tell you the things that I was eating on a normal basis, you'll understand. But I would go outside to play, and within 30 minutes, all of a sudden, I would start to get the shakes. I would start to sweat profusely, and I would get this feeling of I hadn't eaten anything and I was terribly hungry. I found out later those were the symptoms of low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. And the only way that I could fix it was to come inside and deck down a pack of Oreos or whatever, Ring Dings, Devil Dogs, Oreos, and then I would feel better. And then an hour later, the same thing would happen. And I was too young to understand it. But I went through stages where I was into anything sugar. And I remember, and this is embarrassing, but when I say that I was truly addicted, I would eat honey right out of a honey jar type situation. I would eat white table sugar, just spoon it in. I would go to as I grew, I would go to the store or grew up, and I would buy, I won't mention the name brand, but it's a hot fudge in a glass jar that you could heat up and pour it over your ice cream. Well, forget about that. I would just eat the whole jar of hot fudge in one sitting. And then when it comes to anything sweet, whether it be ice cream or brownies or chocolate chip cookies, there was no moderation. I would bake a whole roll of chocolate chip cookies. I would add double the amount of semi-sweet morsel chips, and I would eat the whole thing in one sitting. Same thing with ice cream. Candy, I would buy a large bag of M&Ms, peanut butter M&Ms, and I would down the whole thing in one sitting. And so having a lifestyle of this, I made some changes in regards to, well, maybe I should be starting to back down on the sugar. So I got into things that had NutraSweet, Splenda, aspartame, and moved into those areas, still while also eating sugary things. And again, compulsive obsessive, I would eat, I would drink a 12-pack of diet root beer or Diet Orange, within one day and wouldn't think anything of it. And not until I got into my older years did this stuff all of a sudden start to backfire on me. And I know that before I get into this list, just real quickly, I know that a lot of people have told me, well, you just need to moderate. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of research that I've done, and I'll challenge this, a lot of people say, well, we're omnivores, right? Well, in a way, the human body is very resilient. And the human body's resiliency means that you might be able to eat things that are not considered ancestrally appropriate or nutrient dense, that your body can manage to a certain extent. But if you eat them over a period of a lifetime, that's when you're going to, by the time you start to get old, you're going to start to have all of these symptoms that I started to experience. So hypoglycemia. I suffered one of my 3 life-altering changes quite a few years ago. I had a very bad upper respiratory infection, and it worked its way into my inner ear, not middle ear, inner ear. So it didn't affect my hearing, but it affected my vestibular system. And I ended up with viral vestibular neuritis, which completely compromised my the nerve from my left ear to the brain. So my brain was not getting any signal from my left ear for balance. Now, Dave, watching your channel and experiencing some of your awesome videos, you've talked about your challenges with a stroke early in your life. And what I went through, I was never in any pain, and it didn't cause any paralysis, except the fact it completely burned out my my balance. And I had to learn through therapy and through my own abilities to learn how to walk again and balance. And I think that viral vestibular neuritis was brought on by all the sugar in my body just feeding that viral infection that I had. And I blame it on the sugar. I also, over the past 5 years, were suffering aura migraines. No pain, but I would lose vision, partial vision in each eye. And one of those episodes of an oral migraine caused a migraine-induced aphasia, where I wasn't able to speak objectively or be able to read things, and that lasted for about 40 minutes, and then I was fine. And then ulcerative colitis. I was misdiagnosed with ulcerative colitis. With all the artificial sweeteners that I was eating, I went to an infamous clinic. I'm not going to mention the name, which is one of the most prestigious clinics in the United States. And they diagnosed me with a colonoscopy that I had a inflamed colon, but no other issues. And I went through oral medication that didn't really work. And then I went the next step, and I went on a wonderful drug, which was an infusion, and did that for 5 years. And then decided that, hey, you know what? I'm going to try a couple of things. And I wasn't into carnivore then, but I did cut out most carbohydrates, and I cut out all processed and packaged foods, and just went to the store daily and got, all healthy, whole foods. And within 3 months, I healed myself of ulcerative colitis. And it really wasn't it was a form of ulcerative colitis because my colon was basically waving a white flag. Enough of all the crud that I was eating, along with all the artificial sweeteners. So I was able to overcome that. And then a laundry list of autoimmune issues, which includes osteoarthritis, localized alopecia, localized eczema, red rashes, patches of red skin. I had acid reflux. I was living on a over-the-counter acid reflux medication for 7 years, and I would take one before I would go to bed. Wouldn't take any more during the day, but one before I went to bed. Occasional insomnia, joint pain throughout my whole body, muscle cramps, bleeding gums was a regular thing practically all my life, along with recessive gums. These next three were not bad because I kept them in check, but I knew that I had body odor, bad breath, and foot odor, but I always kept it in check. And then I suffered with typical for my age benign prostatic hyperplasia, also known as BPH, and leaky gut, fatty liver, elevated AST and ALT levels, way over the limit, almost to the point of what an alcoholic's liver would look like. Ringing in the ears, low T, also known as low testosterone, and cluster headaches, to mention a few. Every one of those gone. And at the time, you wouldn't guess how many physicians I would go to that wanted to put me on medication. And then I learned about Big Pharma and Big Food. And along with all the research that the aforementioned doctors that I've mentioned, that I've researched extensively, it all came to fruition in regards to my research that I've done wasn't in vain, that it was very accurate. The average standard American looks forward to, they'll think about it and they'll say to themselves, oh, I can't wait. We're going out tonight and I'm going to have this and I'm going to have this for dessert and this. And yes, I mean, those are wonderful things. And a lot of that has to do with culture. There's so many cultures that engage different types of foods. And I recognize that and I respect that. And all I'm asking is for the same respect back. And I'll share with you some of the responses that I get when I tell people about the path that I've taken. But people look forward to eating those foods. In other words, people, they live to eat. I eat to live. And when you are fat adapted and all your hormones are in balance, you eat until you're satiated and you don't eat again until you're hungry. And for me, that could be anywhere between a 16 to 24 hour intermittent fast. And I'm not trying to intermittently fast. It just happens naturally. And so I look forward to, even though I'm eating the same things, which could be on a menu of maybe a total of 10 different items, I don't, do I still crave all that? Yes, I have to be honest. Crave is not the right word, but when you've lived your life eating compulsive, obsessive carbohydrates, it's still in my brain. The chemical in my brain that remembers what it feels like in my mouth and what it tastes like will never go away, but I don't have that knee-jerk urge to want to do any of that out of fear that it's going to set me back or I'm going to have a very bad reaction now that I'm in ketosis and fat adapted. So having all of those, we'll call them medical opportunities instead of medical issues that I've overcome has been a blessing. And doing strict lion diet or doing carnivore is so easy and it's so satiating and so tasty, and I'm good. And people don't understand, oh, Gig, you have to have fiber. Gig, you have to have fruit and vegetables. And I try to explain to people as best as I can that fiber will make things worse. This is why people are frequently using, taking their nature breaks, because their body is not absorbing certain foods because there's no nutrient, it's not nutrient dense. There's nothing there. And you end up, using the facilities once, twice, 3, 4 times a day. What's regular for me is anywhere between 4 days to possibly 2 weeks, and I'm not constipated. I don't have the other issues. When it's time for me to use the bathroom, I use the bathroom, and I'm not in there for more than a couple of minutes, and boom, I move on. And I think that's because I'm very active physically, athletically, that I'm burning everything that I'm taking in. So there's just not a lot coming out, and that's okay. That's a good thing. So yeah, as far as my carb addictions, they were real, and unfortunately, the damage is done. I am reversing a lot of that, but being a elite athlete in more than one discipline of sport, I was a competitive gymnast back in the day. I also played a lot of tennis, ultimate frisbee, CrossFit, and I played football in middle school. I was the fastest on the team. I was the smallest too. But being physically active and athletic has always been a good thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to snap back as quickly as I have, because other than the sugar addiction, I've always taken care of my body. But, if I had known back then what I know now, my competitive days would have been so much more intense and probably more successful than what it was. And I read about people that are fat adapted that run on their fat stores, and they run off of their adipose tissue. And I truly believe within the next 10 years, maybe even 5 years, more athletes are going to keep that a secret, more competitive athletes in all realms of sport, because it gives you the edge. I remember when I was cycling, I would have to stop every 30 or 40 minutes and do an energy gel, or eat a caramel cookie or something. And it's so nice not being able to do that. And I've even tested myself, and I've ridden for 4 hours, half of that time fairly intensely for me, and I'm good. It's just like, I don't need anything. The term in cycling is called bonking, which is pretty much the same thing as hitting the wall from a marathon standpoint, but sometimes it could be worse. And I did bonk once, and it's not fun. It's not a good feeling, but it's just a wonderful thing. I come from a family of, everyone in our family, we're all athletic. We've always maintained, fairly good health and good physique. But my dad, in retrospect, he was eating ultra high carbs. I call them healthy carbs, if there's such a thing. He had his fruit concoctions quite often, with bananas and oranges and crushed ice. And he ate a lot of carbohydrates. He ate a lot of meat, but it wasn't the cholesterol that killed him. It was the carbohydrates that irritated the inner walls of his coronary arteries. And what your cholesterol does, what your fat does, is it tries to stabilize any damage in the body. I forgot who developed this analogy. one of the pre-mentioned doctors that I mentioned, but your cholesterol would be equivalent to a firefighter, and the fire itself is the damage that is done by sugar. So when you have, and by the way, I was suffering hyperinsulinemia. I had my glucose levels were just off the wall. And so when you're dealing with all this damage from carbohydrates over time, it finally caught up with me, and I became pre-type 2 diabetic, hyperinsulinemia, and all of that is the cause and effect of, well, your coronary arteries are either calcified or damaged. We need to send the firefighters to put out the fire from all the glucose. And people don't realize, oh, well, fruit is healthy. It's good for you. It doesn't matter if it's fruit, vegetables. It doesn't matter if it's sweet potato, pasta, bread, legumes. Guess what? Your body doesn't prejudice or differentiate between what it metabolizes. And it's going to take any carb, and it's going to take it and break it down into one of three things: glucose, fructose, or sucrose. And so when people say, oh, that's healthy, yeah, but your body you end up with glucose. And so I kind of laugh at people and just keep it to myself. I don't even bother trying to argue, because you can't. No thanks to, Anel Keys and what he had established many years ago. But I think the goalposts are slowly moving as we move forward into the future, as far as everything that deals with cholesterol, everything that deals with the ancestral way of what we were put on this earth and what we were designed to eat. Again, I'm going to stress that, yes, we became omnivores. Our bodies are very resilient. But Dr. Anthony Chaffee talks about plants are trying to kill us. And I'm going to quote him just for a moment, in that plants can't get up and run away like a insect or an animal or any type of species that can't defend itself. So how does it defend itself? Well, there are toxins within the plant. There's so many, from oxalates to, I can spend all day talking about them. And your body will adapt to a certain point, but then as you age, some of that, it will change. It will definitely change, and your body can't metabolize it anymore, and you end up with either pre-diabetes or autoimmune deficiency, such as what I had. And yeah, it was awful, but I found a new life, and I feel wonderful.
I've taken some notes, and there's a couple of things I
Mm-hmm.
want to touch on.
Sure.
The first thing that I really find interesting that you said was, over the next 5 to 10 years, athletes are going to keep this a secret. And I think that's a really good observation, because honestly, once you start taking this, you realize that this is like a secret drug. It's,
Agreed.
yeah, just eat meat and it's like taking some kind of steroid. It's crazy, right?
It is. It really is. There are so many athletes right now that have um, come out of the darkness and shared. I don't know all their names. There are a few long distance cyclists, not on the pro peloton that I'm aware of, but these are long distance cyclists. There's one in Australia, and there are a couple in Europe, and they do these intense 6-month excursions where they just do these long marathon type rides. And the one in Australia, he competes and he's ahead of the game. He's in his late 40s or early 50s, and he's out surpassing so many of the others because he doesn't need to stop and refuel. He refuels every 24 to 48 hours. And so uh, I do believe that when you are eating a proper human diet, and on one hand, I love that term. On the other, it's almost being overused now, thanks to the wonderful Dr. Ken Berry. I even have one of his shirts that I had to purchase from him. But I can't think of any other thing to say than other than a proper human diet. Um, you're feeding your body what it was put on this earth to eat, and it responds so favorably that your performance is always going to be at its maximum capability. You're always going to perform at its maximum level. And the other cool thing about a proper human diet or a carnivore or lion diet is if you're overweight, it's going to, with the proper type of exercise, but if you're overweight, it's going to rebalance um, the way that your body metabolically performs to the point where you're going to lose weight. If you're underweight, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to recognize, wait, this isn't the checkpoint, uh, the ideal weight for you, and you're going to put on healthy weight. So if you are fat adapted, and until you get fat adapted, you will not have that hormonal balance in regards to uh, healing the body and having that hunger hormone communicate through your palate to your brain to let you know when you are truly satiated and when you are truly hungry. And I will also mention that people, your viewers, are going to wonder, well, I wonder if he had the carnivore flu, kind of a thing. When I think of the flu, I think of a head cold. I don't think of constipation or diarrhea. But yes, my research that I did before I jumped into this was so extensive that I expected it. I welcomed it. I knew it was inevitable, a necessary evil that I go through because your body needs to adapt, and that adaptation period is going to take some time. So basically, it was for the first 7 or 8 days, um, uh, a lot of diarrhea because your gallbladder isn't used to putting out bile at the rate that it needs to put out for proper digestion when you are fueling off of glucose. And so I knew that that was going to take some time. And only once did I suffer severe constipation. I went from that to, oh, okay, I'm eating too much fat, I'm going to back down. And I backed down too much. And people say, oh, drink water, hydrate, that will fix it. And no, that doesn't fix it. It's fat, it's lubrication. But I had one unpleasant scenario with constipation, and eventually I was able to figure out what I needed for me, what I needed to eat or not eat in regards to the percentage of protein to fat. But getting back to the athlete, there are so many athletes. There are collegiate wrestlers. There are long distance runners. And I think it's just a matter of time before the goalposts are moved far enough that we will see the day in regards to the peloton in cycling. Those professional athletes are going to completely change their diet so that they don't need to, except for hydration and electrolytes, they don't need a hit of glucose because they're getting all their energy from ketones. And the other thing that I learned is once you become fat adapted and you are in ketosis, every organ in your body is saturated around ketones, and your heart, your brain, every other organ, your pancreas, your kidneys, your gallbladder, your liver, all perform at their optimal, and it's just amazing. And I respect and I realize that there are billions of people in this world that would rather enjoy their life now by the fruits of whatever, no pun intended, of whatever they want to indulge in, because their outlook is, well, we may not get another opportunity to do that. And I understand that, especially if there's a cultural reason or a geographic reason, or or part of the country where you were raised where this is considered what you were brought up on. But in regards to someone that had multiple scares in regards to my mortality, it hit me. And by the way, none of my friends or family knew of all of these things that I shared with you in regards to how sick I really was, metabolically sick. And there were days when I couldn't get out of bed and I would just want to stay in bed. I wasn't sleeping, and I can, revisit those. But I would rather um, eat to live and enjoy my grandchildren and be able to travel, even though I'm not eating the indigenous foods of wherever I'm traveling. At least I get to visit those countries because I'm still here. And at my age, almost 70 years old, I've I've lived life long enough that I just don't have the need to want to indulge from a cuisine standpoint anymore. I would rather hike Costa Rica or Machu Picchu and just, eat when I'm ready to eat and not eat when I don't need to eat. And that's kind of my outlook right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally see that. Like, recently I went to Australia to go to Low Carb Down Under, and for some of the legs of my journey, I had enough frequent flyer miles to be able to upgrade my plane ticket to business class. And it's the first time I've been in business class, so it was all this very exciting experience. But I was like, oh, but I can't eat the food. And it was like, the first time I'm going to be in there, but I still can't eat the food. It's not like they're going to have a carnivore on the menu, right? And
Yeah.
but the thing was, I'd rather be able to be pain free and enjoy the experience of sitting in business class than, the temporary, 5 minutes of mouth pleasure of just consuming that bit of food.
You and I are on the same, we're on the same frequency. We're both preaching to the choir, aren't we? Yeah, I just know that I don't regret all the things that I've eaten in obsession. I wish I hadn't, but one of my very, very good friends is probably, other than family, is one person that has stood by me. And I just want to share a couple of thoughts about him. This is someone that actually onboarded me back in 2010 at a company that I became an employee of. And he onboarded me, and we became best friends over the years since 2010. And unfortunately, he became a end-stage renal disease patient, and he was on dialysis for many years. And actually, they found him a kidney and many years ago, and unfortunately, for many reasons, it didn't work out, and he had to go back on dialysis. And I've seen his trials and tribulations with his health. And knock on wood, they found another kidney a couple of years ago, and since then he's been doing wonderful. And I spoke about, I always run things by him, but now that he is a kidney transplant patient, he is at the auspices of following uh, the um, the American Medical Association's directives in regards to kidney transplants, and he um, he is the only real person that has ever supported me, other than my family. Now, my family, they're like, "Oh, great. Well, whatever you want to do, Dad," or whatever. But actually, he has made a remarkable turnaround in regards to he's lowered his carbohydrates intake at almost as low as he can go within the parameters of being a transplant patient. But he looks great now and he's doing wonderful. But he supports me 100%. And he's like the only person I can talk to that doesn't get bored or gig enough, stop, you've said that before, but puts up with me and supports me and encourages me. um, my son has always been keto. He's never really been into sweets, and when he saw the results that I was getting within the first 6 months of my carnivore journey, he went full-blown carnivore and he hasn't looked back. And they're trying to raise his daughter um, uh, more ketovore, carnivore. And my brother recently just went carnivore because he has one particular medical challenge or opportunity, as we'll call it. And unfortunately, it may be the last thing that carnivore is going to have a positive effect on, because carnivore heals you uh, in a way that it takes care of the major components or organs of the human body first, versus ones that aren't maybe as important or lower blood supply areas. So I'm coaching him on his journey, and so far he's doing fine, and he's in it for the long haul as well. His wife is supporting him as well. But I found that it's been difficult. I have my social circle that I've always had, and I'm fine. But when it comes to meeting new people, or if I want to go out on the dating scene, being an eligible single person, um, I had one situation where um, we met online, and when we were talking for a whole week, and we'd already made arrangements for our first date. And I just happened to mention that I'm on this kind of lifelong way of eating. And when she heard that, she said, "Well, I have to be honest with you. That's just kind of out there. It's kind of weird, in my opinion," is what she said. "And that's not for me. I'm not going to involve myself with that person." And that's fine. I'm good with that, because I look at other. I'm a little more open. I have one very close friend who I used to work for, who is a vegan, and I and I don't I don't share or advertise the way that I eat to anybody unless there is a need or they ask. But uh, I just kind of don't bring up the subject, and I feel that if someone wants to go a particular route in their life, that is their prerogative. And I'm not an influencer unless someone happens to say, "Hey, that's amazing that you were able to overcome so many medical issues and you're able to extend your life and your mortality, that I think I'll try that." And then that's when I get hyped and I start with all the talking and bonding. So yeah.
Nice. So I want to kind of go back a little bit and so sorry, let me just follow up there and say it's
Sure.
awesome that you've had an influence on so many people in your life, to like from your son and all the way through. That's awesome. But just to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, you talked about how you swing between carnivore and lion. I'm
Yes,
interested if you notice any differences at all in the way you feel when you're on either of them.
absolutely, there is. And I think there is because I still have compulsive obsessive behaviors. For example, I when I'm doing carnivore, I'll go out and I'll buy, 6 pounds of bacon, and I'll bring that back to the house. And on one particular day, I'll eat a pound of bacon, and in one sitting, sometimes two sittings, and I'll eat a lot of pork products. And only recently have I started to feel, I can't put my finger on it. I just don't have that extra hop in my step. I feel a little bit tired. And I found out that pork is higher in omega 6. And omega 6 can cause inflammatory responses in the body. All this old stuff about nitrates and all this, that's there's no such thing. Celery has more nitrate, and actually, your body metabolizes nitrate uh, and converts it to nitric oxide, which is actually good for vasodilation. But in regards to the omega 6, I will spend a month or two not eating any pork products because of the omega 6. And in regards to eggs, I will often eat 7 or 8 eggs, four of the seven, just the yolk, and the last two or three, the whole egg, including the whites, because I want to make that egg more nutrient dense. And I just don't need the extra protein. So when I'm doing beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, triple B and E, um, I feel good, but I tend to overdo it with the bacon. When I do strict lion diet, it's basically ribeye, um, lamb, it's beef, liver, and ground Wagyu beef. And by the way, all my ground beef is 70/30. It's hard to find 70/30, but the subscription that I have with this cattle farmer out west, they have a 70/30 variety of the Wagyu 2, I think it's called, and that's what they sell me. So I fat is more important to me than protein because I get it. I've always eaten well with protein, and I've always had great muscle rebuilding and muscle performance. But yes, I do feel a little different on the positive when I'm doing strict lion diet, and I have a favorite carbonated water product. One has an Italian name, and I'm not going to mention the name. And the other, it comes in a can, and it's very bubbly, and it has a fruit flavor. But the way that they get the fruit flavor, from what I'm told, there's no sugar. I mean, it'll say zero sugar on the can, but I've been told that there might be micro at the micro level of sugar because it comes from a fruit. Well, that I haven't been able to substantiate that, but that doesn't bother me. So when I'm on the lion diet, I just drink filtered water, and it's like a reverse osmosis water filter, and it's wonderful. And I use that, and I'll mention this company, Redmond's salt. I use their smoke salt. The other compulsive obsessive behavior is I will eat, and I love anything smoked. So I smoke all my meats when I can, versus cook them inside. And I'll plan ahead like 7 days, and I'll prepare for 7 days and then rotate everything around. But I do feel much better when I'm doing strict lion. Absolutely.
Your story resonates with me a lot because a lot of the things you describe remind me of myself. So, firstly, congratulations. You're the second person I've spoken to this week who has a higher LDL than me.
Ah,
So I thought mine was high, but so
can I say
mine's
something
sure.
to to that? Um, Dr. Nader Ali and quite a few other doctors have rested my anxiety. There are different types of LDL, and I'm sure you already know this: small particle and large fluffy particle. And there are formulas that you can use to calculate, based on your total cholesterol and your HDL, and then your triglycerides and your HDL to come up with certain figures that are fairly accurate. And I can tell you that, and I also had a cardiac calcium scan, and there are so many carnivores that are zero. But once you hit 50, regardless, you're going to start to, that percentage is going to go up. And I can tell you that Dr. Philip Ovidia, I followed him in regards to cardiac calcium scans. And I think mine is 33 score for a 69-year-old. That ain't bad. And that's actually very good. Uh, so I know that we were talking about LDL. I know that my high LDL has everything to do with the large particle LDL, which does a wonderful job of maintaining proper functionality, metabolic functionality within the arteries. It's the small LDL, but even now there are the the medical data is showing that as long as uh, whatever total cholesterol, I don't even look at, and I think we'll get to a point where we don't even look at LDL anymore. It's all about A1C, triglycerides, and HDL. And my A1C was 7 something, and it's now 5.0, and my HDL is still around 88. But and I don't look at the others, but the others are like sky high, sky high. It's crazy. Um, that's why I'm known as a lean mass hyper responder, even at my age. And I don't have a lot of body fat on me. And that's changed since I went carnivore. People think, oh, you're eating so much fat, it's going to clog your arteries and it's going to go to your stomach and your love handles. No, that's not how it works. um, and when you become fat adapted, your stomach just goes away. Your love handles goes away. And you become a very lean machine. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can start to see my abs again, So it's all about, and at my age, that's kind of unique. So yeah. But yes, you were saying that I'm the second person that has a higher LDL than you. But yeah. And by the way, Dave, I saw that video of you. You're amazing when you were running up the steps and jumping down after everything that you've been through with, uh, your trials and tribulations when you were growing up and the things that you've had. So you're amazing.
Cheers. So,
Cheers.
um, just before we finish up,
Sure.
what what is what is your elevator pitch to someone who comes to you and says, "Look, Gig, you're looking awesome. How do I get some of that?" And I notice your diet's a bit different to most, but why would how can I do that? That's just not for me.
Good question, Dave. And I also want to give a shout out to one person in particular who is one of my sister's best friends. Her name is Gloria. She actually found Carnivore, I think, a couple of weeks or maybe a month before my sister told her about me. And I had known her prior to us touching base with Carnivore, but she had some really serious lipid issues, liver issues, some mild weight issues, and she is doing absolutely incredible. But we spend quite a bit of time. I send her videos from all, I don't know if I mentioned Carrie at Homestead How. Yes, I did. And you, and then Intentional Carnivore. But I send her videos, as many videos as I can from female carnivores like Kelly and male carnivores, so that she can get a good balance between, women in and men, and a lot of the differences and a lot of the likes. But when someone comes to me and they have, if I find that they're truly sincere, I'll spend as much time with them because I get enjoyment out of it. And the reason why I get enjoyment out of it, I'm not trying to, I'm not in a cult. I'm not trying to minister or preach my way into that they need to do something. It's all driven by, oh my gosh, my life has changed. My life has changed without a drug, without a medication, without vitamins. I get all the vitamins that I need. I do supplement K2 and D3 when I need to, and omega-3, and that's it. That's it. But I'll just coach them if they need it. And quite a few of them, Dave, honestly, they get motivated, and then it's too much of a change for them to really change their life, because people are comfortable in the way that they've lived. And unless someone has a life-altering health issue where this is almost a last resort, it's very difficult to influence and be an influencer. And again, I think we're going to be fighting big food and big pharma for, death and taxes, right? Well, big food, big pharma. And so if someone, God forbid, if someone reaches a point in their life where they are faced with a life-altering situation, if that's what it is needed to get them into this, that's fine. I would rather it be someone inquiring, and I can share with them what it did for me, and hope that it'll change them. And my friend Gloria, she and I connected in regards to supporting each other, and we're constantly taking pictures of certain things that we cook, and we send it to each other, or she'll let me know. Another good example, she is an educator, and she was in school, and she was walking down the hall, and a couple of her colleagues, when they finally met up with each other, they said they hadn't seen her in a while. They said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even recognize you. You've lost so much weight, and you look so good, and you've got, so much energy." And those are the kind of things that we all like to hear. And so I hope that the things that I've shared can help motivate people, because it's not a one-off. It's just not me. Everyone reacts differently, of course, but again, it's ancestrally. We're doing what we were put on this earth to do, and we're just resetting our body, and our body, to quote Dr. Ken Berry, our body is like, oh, I remember that. I think that's what I was designed to eat. And since birth, the most potent, powerful, most healthiest fat and protein is mom's milk. But you can only drink mom's milk to a certain point. But mom's milk is in the same category as what we were designed to eat, anthropologically speaking. So, but I hope that answered your question. I try to do what I can without being overbearing, and I tend to get overbearing because I get excited. And my daughter has had on many occasions, Dad, take it down a couple of levels, or Dad, and it's like, and if I had any wishes, um, I hear from so many people that, oh, I've been eating this all my life and I'm fine, I'm healthy, and my response is, yeah, but what's going to happen when you hit 50 years old and you start to age and your immune system is compromised, because now all those things that have accumulated in your body again might be a little bit omnivore, but now your body is waving that white flag saying help. And it's not a situation where a drug is going to fix it. Drugs were originally designed to treat the symptom, not the root cause. And this addresses the root cause naturally.
Very well said.
Thank you.
So, Gig, do you have a social media like a Facebook or Instagram
I,
or
I
YouTube
have
or anything?
I have Instagram, and it's the Gig7, THEGIG7. Right now in my life, I tend to live more of a quiet. If I come across someone that is interested and wants to hear what I have to say, I will obviously say it. Otherwise, I've learned not to put my foot in my mouth and to just keep my mouth closed and carry on. Yeah.
Cheers. Well, Gig, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
Dave, it's been a complete pleasure. I thank you, and you've been an inspiration to me. And can I say one more thing real quick?
Sure.
Your videos a year ago, I used to love because they were epic in the way that you would open the video up by saying, "Carnivore can be this and can be that," and then you kind of reverse it, and you talk about the positive of, because of carnivore, you're never going to have this again, and you're never going to have that again. And that's what attracted me to you, is the way that you engaged us as the viewers. So keep doing what you're doing. I love what you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.